everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy Christmas Wednesday to you. Yes, I love sparkles, so bear with it. I love sparkles. Okay, so I am dressed up for Christmas because we're past Thanksgiving. It is time to really celebrate what Christmas is all about. And this is it is November's Christmas Wednesday. So what are we doing? Well, like you see, I don't have all the projects behind me, right? I actually have today's project behind me. Now, it looks a little weird. It looks a little crazy, and there's a reason for it. I will tell you, this is a tree skirt. So as you can see, I've already done the slit and the hole for the middle, but I've only started to put the binding on, okay? Yep, I've only started. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of the video because I wanted to do something a little different. Yeah, I wanted to do something a little different. So we're going to talk about that at the end. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and move forward with this awesome Christmas. We're calling it Christmas Cheer tree skirt. Okay? All right. So what are we going to need? What's going on here? What is this? What is this thing? And how do we start to construct it? Now, the first thing I will tell you, all of these individuals are cut 2.5-inch squares. So they finish at 2 inches, but they're cut at 2.5. There are actually 368 squares of 2.5-inch squares. Okay. And then we have these larger ones. These are actually 8.5 cut and finished at 8. And there are 6 of them. Now, the fabric, I got to talk about the fabric for just a second. The fabric that I used is cut cheer. Okay. I have limited amounts of this left as we've been doing all kinds of sales and we've been going out on pop-up shops, all kinds of stuff. So I have a limited amount of this, but I will tell you there is a panel at the bottom and they come with 12 of these. Now that's actually pretty well cut. This is what one looks like uncut. Now I will tell you also, I did not straighten or square like I've taught you all before in the past how to square a panel. I didn't do that with this, and we came into some issues with it, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It really wasn't. But we're going to use 6 of these, and I think I've taken a picture. So I think I've taken a picture of the whole entire panel, and if I in fact did, I'll put it over here, okay? Because I really do want you to see what that, maybe I'll do it over here. Wait. There we go. I'll do it over here. Because I really want you to see what that panel looks like because there are 12 different panels. They measure bigger than 8.5, but when I cut them down, I did cut them down to 8.5. And I have some pictures that I think of that too, but there's a little bit of blue left, and that's okay. Because if you sew correctly and you cut correctly, it'll all be hidden. There are some places where you might be able to see them, some of the blue, because they were a little wonky and I didn't square them like I said, but it is what it is. I used 6 of them, okay? And I want to tell you that throughout the video, when I'm showing you how to align them and place them, they were all going the same direction down. That's not the way you should do it. They should all face out, whatever out means. So you can see these 2 look upside down, but when they're in a tree skirt and it's around the tree, they're going to be facing out, okay? So this one's facing that way. This one's facing that way. These 2 down here are facing this way. And those 2 up there are facing up. So it's real important. And let me tell you guys what happened. I actually sewed them all going the same direction. So at first I thought I'd just let it ride and let it be a design element, but because of the way that we cut to get the hole and the slit, I had to rip it. Yep, me and Jack were friends, and I had a lot of Y seams, which I'm not bothered by, but I know that a lot of you don't like or aren't familiar with Y seams, so just make sure they're all facing out. Whatever out means, they're facing the out direction. That's very, very important. All right, so 368 2.5-inch squares. Let's talk about that for a minute. If you had one fabric and you are making them, I don't know why you would do that, because I would just do strips. But if you just had one color fabric and you had 368 2.5-inch squares, that would be 1 yard and 5/8 worth of fabric. We don't buy it 5/8, so that means 1 3/4, right? So I'm giving you that measurement in case you do a two-tone or something that you want to manipulate. The total amount is 1 3/4, okay? But what I did is I took a fat quarter bundle and I just started cutting up squares. And I cut too much. I cut way too much, which I hope to share with you some sort of surprise at the end. Because I cut a lot, and I still have more. Even though I'm going to show you the surprise at the end. I still cut more. So what I did was a little crazy, and I talk about that in the next clip, but I just cut. Now you can get 56 2.5-inch squares in every fat quarter. So if you need 368 of them, that's actually equal to a little more than 6 fat quarters, 0.57 blah, blah, blah. So that would be a little more than 6.5 fat quarters to get that amount. I just started cutting, and I ended up using 2 whites, 2 grays, because they're in here, okay? 2 different patterns. They're both gray, but they have 2 different patterns. 2 whites, 2 teals, 2 greens, 2 navy blue, 2 reds, and I think that's it. So I mixed them all together, and I just started cutting, and I got them all done. Okay, I had enough for 368, and I'll talk about that. I just slapped them all up there, and I just kind of made some. I have a design board. I do talk about if you don't, though. So look forward to that. But I just kind of put them all in there. 368 2.5-inch squares. I can't say that enough. That's what you'll need. And 6. Now, if you don't want to do panels, I think I'll talk about it in the live. But because I also have another fabric line I think would be really cute with this. But it doesn't have a panel that goes with it. With these squares like this. So we'll talk about that at the live today. Cup of cheer. I used, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. Like 8 different fat quarters. And there's so much more in there. And I have more to do with this. It'll come down the chain and you'll see it in the future. But that's the scoop on the fabric and what you will need. The last thing I want to share with you, if I'm giving you there, it's actually 2 resources, but it's broken down. If you broke it down and each one was its own, it'd be 3. So I did a coloring sheet. This isn't the coloring sheet, although it could be. We did a coloring sheet, which it's all of this together, and then we did a guide to break up the sections, and then we did a in each section we actually broke them down even further so that you understand there's no Y seam. So we'll talk about the resources later, just to be sure that you know they're available. And this is absolutely free, guys. I could have written this as a pattern. I'm not doing that, so I'm walking you through step by step. This is awesome. I cannot wait. My daughter was like, can I have it? Well, she's already got a tree skirt. So no, you can't have it. But we're going to talk about a lot more. But I think that's all that I need to share with you. If I'm forgetting some, we'll talk about it at the live. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this started. Let's learn how to make this octagon Christmas cheer tree skirt. So I'll see you in just a sec. Oh, I almost forgot another important part. As far as backing goes, I cut 3.5 yards for the backing. I did my split in half, so I had a vertical line. And I had a lot extra. So it was enabling me, if you pick the same backing, if you pick the backing that you want to use for your binding, you'll have plenty for all of that, okay? And for my batting, I use a throw size 60 by 60. So I have leftover of that too, okay? But apparently, if you did, this is going to, that was another thing. This is going to be unfinished at 48.5, finished at 48 on the longest stretch, okay? It's a larger tree skirt. So, the throw size batting will work. As far as binding goes, because of all the odd angles that you have to do your miter corners with, which we'll talk about, and because of the slit in the center, you'll need 220 inches, but because we have so many of those things, I recommend doing 260 inches. You may have extra, you may not. I had some extra. I piecemealed mine, so I had a little extra bias angles on my binding, but I'm coming out okay. So 260 inches of binding is equivalent to 6.5 inch strips of 2.5 inch binding. I actually did mine at 2.25, but most people do 2.5, and you'll need 6.5 inch strips with the fabric, assuming it's 40 inches of usage. And that is equal to half a yard of fabric. So I used 3.5 yards to get my seam that's in the back up the middle-ish, right? And it gave me enough fabric left over that I didn't have to cut anything else or buy anything else to do all the binding, because you need a half yard more, and there's plenty of that left over. You just might have to piecemeal it. 260 inches for binding. If you're cutting with a fabric and you're buying a different binding material, 6.5 inch strips with a fabric, and 6.5, which is equal to half a yard. Okay. So now we're going to get this started. Sorry, guys. See you in a sec. Okay, so here we are. I have actually, what I did was a little crazy. So I used graph paper and I manipulated how I was going to lay it out. But in the graph paper, I didn't color anything. So I basically just laid out everything and made sure things didn't touch where they needed to, that I felt comfortable with it, and nothing sewn at this point, okay? I just wanted to know how it was going to work and if I'd be happy with it. And I am. I'm extremely happy with what I have. But for you, I went round and round trying to figure out how I was going to teach this, because it's kind of a little bit intense and it would make a really good pattern to sale. But this is a Christmas Wednesday, And I've always wanted to do a tree skirt with you, so this was really, really important to keep this free. And one of the ways to keep it free is not taking the time to write a complete pattern. But what I did do is a coloring sheet, which you're never gonna see this, right? So I'm gonna put it up here, I think. I think that makes sense. So the first thing you can get for free is a coloring sheet. And I think it's really advantageous. If you look at this, it's every single block that's in the quilt. And if you're not using this exact line, you can use anything you want, and it will enable you to put the colors out and map it before it is even with fabric. So you know everything you need to know before you start cutting, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that we've done is I've broken this up into 6 sections, okay? We have the top section, which I've labeled A, the bottom section, which I've labeled B. Now, A and B are exactly the same. As far as squares and numbers and things like that, what you put them in them, I would do the 2-inch squares exactly the same, but if you notice, the bigger squares are a little different. They're same color, but they're different prints, right? But A and B are the same, and then inside here is C, D, E, and F, and all of those can be the same too, and it'll allow you to know that you're not having anything touching. And I wanted you to see what section was which, so we created a document that takes the coloring sheet and it draws the lines, it spreads it out a little bit, as you can see here, and it allows you to see exactly what section is which, you know, allows you to actually create this without a design board. So I have a design board that I can throw everything on here and I can get it done and see what's going on, but you may not have that same space. So that was another thing that I really tried to work through. So here's the deal. You can build section A on a table, on a counter, on your bed, anywhere. And if you have the coloring sheet, it actually helps a lot because you can color which color is which, or what, you know, which block is which. But if you do A, you can make B identical, okay? And then you can work on C, and C will be identical to E. And then you can work on D, and it's identical to F, okay? So you can make these all the same and allow yourself to just work on those particular sections. Once you have A done, you can duplicate and do B. Once you have C done, you can duplicate and do E. Once you have D done, you can duplicate and do F, okay? And I'm gonna come back at you. I'm gonna sew all the sections together without, you know, they'll be separate so you can see what I'm talking about and make this a little bit more understandable. But using those free gifts to you, it will help immensely. Because like I did say, I did use my diagram. If you have the design space, you can just slap everything on there and then work with it, okay? And moving stuff and changing things. If you don't, those particular tools will be so advantageous because you can work in small groups. You just want to make sure that whatever, you know, this is A, so you don't want any of the C when it's touching to have the same exact fabric right next to it. I mean, it could be catty corner, yeah. But you don't want to, you know, I don't want a gray leaf here. I know you probably can't see this, but a gray leaf with a gray leaf right underneath it, right? You kind of want to mix and match. They can be catty corner, They can have the same print if they're the same color, because far away you wouldn't have any idea. This is just really scrappy patchwork. But utilizing those tools, if you don't have the space to hang on a design board, it will help immensely. And it does help, even if you do have a design board, to know how many are in this row, how many are in that row, how many are in the 5th row, the 6th row, and being able to just slap them up there and get her done. So this is the first step, okay? This is my first step. It may not be yours, because if you're just working with one section, then you just want to work with the one section. But I laid it all out. I got her all done, and I've told y'all in the intro exactly how many squares there are, because you don't have to use this fabric. You can do whatever you like. But the next video clip that we're going to do, I'm going to have all the sections sewn together. And I think that'll help make a lot more sense. So let me go get that done. Man, I hope you enjoy this, because it's a lot of fun. It's super cute. I mean, this is super, super cute. And it's not me. It's the fabric that makes the magic, okay? And it will make a wonderful tree skirt. So I will see you guys. I'm going to get all the sections sewn together, and I'll see you in just a second. Okay, I'm back, and I will tell you, okay, as you saw words in that last clip, I had a little confusion going on, and I don't know if you saw me hesitate at one point. It's because I was thinking about it. But what I did go ahead and do is I put some of these together, some of these sections together. But while I was sewing, I thought, oh, I can hear the questions. I need to address them. There are absolutely no Y seams in here. You just have to break it down in a great way. And we will have another sheet for you that I've broken down the individual sections so that there are no Y seams, okay? So that's the first thing that I want to talk about. So if you'll see here for this first section, okay, I actually do have the panel, and I've taken, it's 8.5 inches, right? So each one of these are 2.5. Let's just say finished in the block, it's 2 inches and 8 inches. So 4 of these fit on our 8-inch finished block. So I went ahead and did that, okay? I also did, I don't know how well you can see it, but 2 of the strips that go on the top. So the first one I think is 10, the next one below is 12. And of course you're gonna see this, and I know that's another question, so I'm gonna address it in a little bit. So then what I did is I used the sheet, okay, and I knew the first row had 5, second row has 6, 7, 8, 9. I went ahead and put the 2-inch strips together. There is a straight line over here. All of this is going to be cut. We will talk about that, I promise you. And I'm actually going to demonstrate after it's quilted how to cut it, okay? However, this line is straight, and it is 5 deep. It would be 4 for the panel and 1 for the strip that we've attached. So this will connect very easily to this side of your panel, and then the exact opposite on the other side. And that will give you, once you have these 2 blocks of the section on, you'll be able to attach the top, okay? And the same thing goes for the bottom, which I actually have finished. I'll pull it off because I don't think you can see the whole thing. So this is identical to the top, okay? Plain and simple. Now for the middle, we talked about C, D, E, and F. Whoop. We got to get that to stay. Okay, C, D, E, and F. And we're not having a good time here. All right, I need to pin it. Okay, so this section was C, and I believe this is D, E, and F. I'd have to look at that sheet again. However, this section is from this middle over and this up, Okay, so it's just this section. And then this is the next section. These two are identical in numbers, okay? As far as like how many squares are there and where do they go, these two are identical and these two are identical. So if you're building in sections on smaller tables, when you have this done, you can do this one. Now, what I've done, again, I've sewn 4 blocks together, and then once those are together, I attached them to the panel. I knew, according to the chart, that each one of these were 3 wide. So I sewed 3 together, 3 together, 3 together, etc. 5 deep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I sewed them all together. Once this is on, this will attach very nicely. No Y seam needed, okay? Then this is a 5 by 5. So we've got 5 going across, 5 going down. Once all this is together, we can attach it to this panel. And you'll do the same thing on the other side. And I have this one done so you can actually see it works and does very, very nicely. This is going to be so cute. I can't even wait. Now, if you'll notice, the sides to these 2 sections, well, actually, all 4 of the middle, they have straight lines on the edge. That's because those aren't, there's one that will be cut on each, but this is part of the hexagon. Okay, so we're not going to have to cut into it too much. There's a little bit, but not too much. So I wanted to share with you breaking down those sections, and there's another resource for you where I've actually broken it down a little bit. Sew these together, then you can sew this on, and you can get them all together. So I've done that for you. I've done that magic for you. Okay, then once everything's together, we're going to cut. But I need to address something with you one last time. You'll see how in the world did I do this. For those of you who are new, I just simply sewed. That's all I did. So I've left this strip not attached. Okay, how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 9 2.5-inch squares sewn together. I'm going to flip this right sides together, and I'm going to pin all the nesting seams. And I'm going to take a picture for you of what that looks like. I'm going to bring you into the sewing machine, and I'm going to show how I stitch this because it's longer, right? It's got a whole nother block on the end of it. That there isn't one for it on the top. So I realized that that might be a little confusing as I was sewing. So I'm going to bring you next with the sewing machine. I'll take a picture of this pinned, and we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to sew with you. And then those are the hardest parts. Once you have all the sections, individual sections together, I mean, this one is identical to this one. Now notice, see, this has the 4 attached to this panel. This has on the bottom. This one has the 4 attached on the top. This is still not complete because I wanted you to see that once you have this on, these will fit, this will fit. So that's why that's not done. And this is exactly what it looks like when it is, okay? So it does work without Y seams. So let me go ahead and get that strip for you pinned. I'll take a snapshot, and I'll meet you next at the sewing machine. So I'll see you in just a sec. So here we are at the sewing machine. Now, I want to talk about a couple of things, and I know it's really hard to see this whole thing in this camera view. So I want to go ahead and talk about how I pin this. This, if you've watched me before, you already know this, but I just wanted to share my little madness to my method. And in this, if you will see, okay, I pin on the right and the left of my seam line, okay, but I give myself enough space so when I'm stitching along, I'll stop before this pin, pull it out. I'll go all the way over the seam line before I pull the second pin out. So I have to give myself enough space. Now the picture I'm showing you is the whole thing. So I'll throw it up here. It's all the way. Now if you'll notice, this this area, right, we don't have another block on top. It is just pinned, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch all the way along here, and I'm going to stop after the fabric. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit past, and I will backstitch. You don't need to, but I will, just so it doesn't come unraveled. And if you'll notice, the fabric does go beyond. It's about a 1/4 inch, right? It's my 1/4 inch line, and I'm going to go all the way to the end of this fabric, and I'll flip this over when I'm done sewing. But it'll make sure that this seam has been sewn all the way through. Okay, it's unconventional. If you feel uncomfortable, you could add other squares to it to make it right. I think it's a lot more work, but you could if you weren't comfortable with it. You just have to add a lot more blocks. And I would suggest using blocks that are not the same print. So maybe a very inexpensive muslin or a white Kona or something that's very, very different, so you know where the blocks for the quilt top start and stop. But I just go ahead and sew. That's all I'm doing. I'm not adding extra blocks. So I wanted to share this with you. Now, I will also tell you, originally I pinned on the other side, okay? Because if you'll notice, this is the back, right? These are all the seams, and this is the front. I originally pinned where they were on the other side, but then the pins are going to be on the bottom instead of the top. And the reason is I always start with the straight edge. I'll finish with the weird one, okay? It just makes it easier. So I just simply go ahead, put it right underneath, and I got to make sure I have a place to catch my needles. Matter of fact, I'll go ahead and put it right over here. All right. Had to grab my foot. All right, here we go. So I'm just simply going to just stitch like normal. Now, if you'll notice in this direction, this seam is facing that way. So I know if this is going to flip, the seam underneath is facing towards me, so it shouldn't flip. However, I always check it by lifting it up before I get there. Now remember, I'm going to stop before the first pin, which is what you're seeing. I'll go ahead and I'm on the seam, okay? So I've crossed over to the seam, but I'm before the pin. So I gave myself enough room. Then I'm going to stitch right past the seam line. I'll go ahead and pull the pin. And I'll check that seam underneath, make sure we're good. Cross onto the fabric, pull the pin, go over the seam line, pull the second. It's that easy, guys. Okay. Pull the first one. All right, pull the second. You got to check the seam underneath. Not hard at all. Mindless sewing. And why do I do it like this? It's so that I know that my fabric won't shift. I try very hard not to run over my seams, my pins, but I will be honest, sometimes it happens. And I didn't check my seam. I'm not really too concerned about them because they're as soon as they go over the needle plate, the seam underneath should flip the correct direction. Now, if you'll see this one, let me get out of the way. This one is starting to flip up, but it's early enough and I can see that I can just lift my presser foot and move on. I'm on that fabric now, over the seam. But yeah, I do it this way so I don't get flip seams, and that if I pull the pin too early, I don't feel like the nesting seam will stay. It has another chance of, separating a little bit, and then it'll make it look like it's not on point. And like I said, you don't have to be a magic sewer. Just takes a little extra time. All right, we're getting down to that last one. And if you're wondering why I pinned it, it's because I've had it get loosey-goosey. And this time I'm sewing where I can see the extra fabric. Sometimes the way they go together, you're sewing without it. You're sewing blind and you just want to go over the seam line, okay? When it's the flipped over the other direction, because like I said, I always start with the straight edge, okay? So sometimes you're sewing like this. Well, if you don't pay attention, and ask me how I know. I shared a picture on Instagram. It flipped underneath. Oh, it was a mess. So I pin now to let me know where that fabric is and to hold it so that it doesn't have any chance of flipping. And I'm just going to simply pull it out before I get there. I'm going to go over that fabric just a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit of back stitching. And I'm going to go ahead and I have to cut threads because I'm stopping in the middle of fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and cut threads. So let's see what it looks like on the other side. Okay. I've got some, I don't press fat quarters. I mean, not press, starch. So that's where the little phrase come extra. But I'll take a picture. That'd probably be a good idea because the lighting's hard for it to focus in. But I've gone over, you'll see I've gone over that seam. So it works. It's going to hold and everything will be fine. I'm going to end up cutting along there. So it's not important that how this is attached or not. And it's going to give us some guideline to understand where to cut, okay? But it does it all the way through. Now I know, I'm hearing you. You're like, Angel, do you have matching points? Now here's my leader ender. Let's find out, shall we? Well, that one looks good. That one looks good. That one looks good. That one looks good. All right. Yeah, we are a-okay. Now I got a little thread here and I'm not going to pull it. I'm going to snip it. So there we go. This one's perfect. And then we have that oddball at the end, and that's what it looks like on the front. Okay. It's not attached to nothing. It's just loosey-goosey. But like I said, we're going to be cutting along there. So it's really not important that it's attached to anything. So I wanted to give you a heads up on this. I wanted to show you how I pin and how I stitch that really odd ending, because it's different. There's not another seam there. And it'll be okay. It will work perfect. And you'll get pretty points too. So I'm going to go ahead and press this. Which way am I going to press this? This one is going, see, they're all going the same direction in bulks. I don't want to think too hard. Okay. So I'm going to press so it goes towards this one. So I'll put that one on top. I'll relax the seam and I'll press it open. I'll press the panel open and get a nice, beautiful seam in the back with beautiful stitching. And that's it, guys. That's what I've been doing the whole time. I'm telling you, fun, easy, enjoyable sewing. So I'll see you guys in just a sec. Okay, I thought of one more thing and I can't let you down. But Angel, what about pressing? What about pressing? There's a lot going on here. What happened to this? I did say all of my seams nest, and they all do. Why? Because how it's pressed. I want to share very, very simply, okay? The very top row, which way did I go? Yep. The very top row, I sewed to the right. The second to the left. The third to the right. The fourth to the left. The whole row is sewn in that direction. So every row underneath nests with the one on top. Period. And it worked out beautifully with the magic, with the numbers, with the math, because, and that's just row by row. So we're going to talk about putting the blocks, the bigger sections together here in just a second. But if I attach this to this guy, I'm going to press it to the right, the same as the third row, okay? So that whole seam is going to be pressed to the right. This whole seam is also going to be pressed to the right. And because there's odd numbers, this one is also, this whole row, because it's right, left, right, left, right. So even though I'm pressing all of these to the right, it's going to nest with the one next to it, because all of this row is pressed to the left. When it comes to the panel, when you attach it, this is still an odd number, right? So we're going to press them all to the left, okay? The same as this row right here and this one right here. Attach this, press it go in that direction. Attach this, press it go in that direction. And that will allow the next section to be able, because they're odd numbers, you're going to be able to press it towards the direction of the first or last row, okay? That's all you need to look at. Now, up and down. So what I did is we've attached this. All of these rows, when I put them together, I pressed going up and out, okay? So this one, these 4 that I attached to the panel, I had to press down, so that whenever these two meet, because we're going to have an intersection of seams, they're nesting still. So this one went up. This one up here, between the 1 and 2, I went ahead and pressed up. This one I pressed down. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to press this one going up. You just have to pay attention of what you've done with your pressing. That's all you need to do, okay? So on here, I press these all going up because it's still the top half of my quilt top. So this one again, I press going down. So when I attach this, these 2 seams are going to nest beautifully. So what does that mean? This one went up, this one went down. Guess which one this did? That's right, it went up. Now we've got a whole nother section because we're in the exact middle of the quilt. So these all went up, so guess what? These all go down. When I attach the 4 to the panel, I press them going up. Why? Because all these are going down. You just want to constantly flip and flop. I did that throughout the entire quilt. On the bottom here, I've actually pressed the bottom half in my head, I press going down, okay? But when I have to attach a section to it, so these 4, this is going down, so this is going up. So what does that mean? These go down, these go up, these 4 on this panel go down, and this one goes up. I was just looking. It's exactly how I did it. You just need to pay attention. You add it, which way am I going to press? Add it, which way am I going to press? Because it all depends on what's all around. So you just look, okay, I press these all going down. So when I add these, which way am I going to press it? I would go back and look. Okay, I press those going down, so I know that I need to press that going up. I'll add this section next. But which way do I press them? Oh, well, I press these going up, so I have to press all these going down. That's it, guys. And because of the way that this is broken up, it all works. Every single seam in here nests. All of them, okay? If you have any questions about it, never, ever hesitate to message or anything. That's what I'm here for. This is not hard. It's just a lot of 2-inch squares, or 2.5, because they're all 2.5 cut, 2 inches finished in the quilt. So it's not difficult, guys. It's a lot of fun. And it's kind of mindless sewing. I pin every single seam so that I get my points. That's it. I'm not a magic sewer. I'm a pinner to make sure that they make. Some people don't need to do that, and that's fine. But that way I know that it doesn't shift on me, and I get these beautiful, beautiful points. So I really wanted to address some of the pressing, because y'all know I always talk about pressing with you guys, because I don't do open seams. This would be a good place to do open seams, but that's a lot, and I'm not poking and pinning every one of them. So I nested, starting from the top, right, left, period. Then just up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. The whole section. Every time I added one, I pressed it going up. I added 2 to 1, I pressed it up. Added 3 to 2, pressed it up. I made these sections all the same direction, so I didn't have to sit there and go, oh, and it's so nice because we have this no seams all the way through here. The only seam that you have to mess with is that one. That's it. When you attach these things, I'm telling you guys, the math worked out fantabulously to make this super fun. And it's not hard. Just look what you did and do the opposite for the next. So, all right, so that's it. So now I need to get to work. I'm going to get this whole thing sewn together and I'm going to go ahead and quilt it. How am I going to do that? We'll get it all sewn, all the sections together, then the whole quilt top put together. It'll be a solid, plain and simple quilt top, and I'm going to load it on my long arm, and we're going to do some kind of design. My daughter's here, so she's going to pick the design, which hopefully I have a surprise with the end of this for you, but I'm going to go ahead and do this on a long arm. We will talk about at the end, if you don't have a long arm, I have done the same size, a different pattern. It wasn't my pattern, but the same size of a tree skirt, and I quilted it free motion on my domestic with a 6 3/4 throat. So this is possible to do that, but there are other things that you can do to make this really not, if you're not into free motion quilting, or you haven't tried the skill, or you're not comfortable with it yet, and you feel like you need a little bit more practice, so you don't want to. That's the bottom line. If you just don't want to, or you just haven't got that level of skill yet, I do have some ideas to make this so much easier, and I think you'll appreciate it. I've got 3 different ideas. If you'll wait till the end, we will talk about that. But I'm going to go ahead and get this sewn together. I'm going to load it on the long arm. I'm going to get it quilted. The next time you see me, we're going to be up on top on an overhead view, and I'm going to show you how to cut. So you do want it quilted first, pieced and quilted first. And then we'll talk about how we're going to make this a tree skirt, because it'll be like a weird shaped quilt top, right? So I will see you guys overhead next clip with a quilted sandwich, and we'll get ready to get this finished. So I'll see you, hours for me, but just seconds for you. So I'll see you in just a second. Once you have it all quilted, now is the time that we are going to start to trim this down. And I've already started, as you can see, but I'm on my last little section, and I just wanted to explain it. So we're going to line up the 1/4 inch line on your ruler along these points right in here, not along these points and not along these points. And I've taken a picture to show you exactly what I mean. But sometimes when you quilt, it gets a little wonkety wonk. How you like that word? And I will tell you, because there's not another block up here or up here, you may not hit right at that point, and that's okay. So I'm going to line this up right along here on these points, this intersection right here, okay? Very simple. Give me a hot minute. I took a picture and then I had to move the ruler so I could explain it to you. Okay. And if it's really off, you can slide your ruler as you cut. But I think we're good here. So I'm simply going to trim, make sure I cut all the way through before I move the ruler. Okay. And I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Oh no, I did. So it's a 1/4 inch, sorry about that. It's a 1/4 inch away from this intersection. Okay, so what that's going to do is when you put your binding on, it's going to give you some room to capture the point. You don't have to do it like that. This is how I chose to do it. So let me go ahead and turn it. And the last one is just very, very simple. Whoop, go the other way. You're going to go right along that straight edge. And the beautiful thing behind this is you can actually tell if you're straight by using one of your lines, one of your intersections as a guide. Okay, because again, when you quilt it, sometimes it gets wonkety wonk. I like that word. I don't know if you can tell. And that's it. So you'll just go all the way around all the sides, okay, and get that done. The next step is we're going to start to put that hole and the slit in the middle, okay? So I'm going to get it prepped because there's something I want to show you, and when I come back we'll still be overhead, but I'll get that done for you, and then we'll talk some more. So I'll see you in just a sec. The next step, so we've got everything trimmed, and now what we're going to do is I'm going to create a slit, and I'm doing it in the middle. It made it really easy to pick in between the sides that have two pictures. And I really like the hot cocoa stand, so I've made that the front. These will sit in the back, so I'm going to cut my slit on the back side of my tree skirt and also in the middle. So what I've done is I've figured out which one was the middle by finding the middle of here, okay? And if we look, this is the center. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then of course it goes down the middle, up and down. Okay, so these are my 4. And what I've done is it's called a stay stitch. And I've just basically stitched about 1/8 of an inch along here on this side. I went on the outside of where I'm cutting, okay, because I'm going to cut out this square, okay. So I've sewn on the it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. It's going to be in the binding. So 1/8 of an inch here, 1/8 of an inch outside here, 1/8 of an inch here, and 1/8 of an inch here, and then back here, and then we went straight back down to the other side, okay. And now I'm going to take some scissors. Now, why do we do the stay stitch? Well, we're going to cut this seam. I'm going to use the seam as my guide. And because of that, these stitches are going to get a little loosey-goosey, possibly because there's nothing holding them together. You could do a stay stitch around the diagonal part, but I'm going to go ahead and bind quickly, so I'm okay with that. But you can do a stay stitch all the way around. But I'm just doing it in here where I'm going to cut, okay? So here's the moment of truth. And I have put a picture. I will say I took a picture because I know this might be hard to see. Basically, and all this is it's just stitching. It's just straight stitch. Just get her done at 1/8 of an inch around your center and back down either side of this seam that you're going to cut, okay? So I went ahead and took this picture, and I'm going to attempt to draw lines around where I decided to do, because I think it'd be visually easier for you to understand if I gave you something to look at besides just trying to get you to piecemeal this, okay? So there's the picture, and I gave you a little bit of a close-up also of the stay stitch. It ain't perfect, guys, but it doesn't have to be as long as it's doing its job, number 1. And number 2, don't go all the way out to the 1/4 inch, because then you won't be able to hide that, okay? So, moment of truth. Here we go. All right, so just take your scissors, and I am really, you don't even have to be too persnickety about this either. I mean, you do want a straight line, but I'm just cutting the seam. And you could use your rotary cutter if that makes you feel any better. Whoop, See, I didn't stitch right there. I got too close to the seam, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. Everything is fine. I just want to make sure my 4 is. Now, if you wanted, this is going to be a 4-inch hole. If you wanted this hole to be bigger, just understand that each of these blocks is 2 inches finished inside this quilt. This is 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches. So I'm cutting a 4-inch square. Usually I cut circles when I do tree skirts. However, I wanted the binding to be easier for you guys because some of you don't like to do bias cutting, bias binding cuts. So this allows you to cut your binding normal. I say normal, you know, just a regular way, just as first, you know, with a fabric. All right. So now I'm going to go in a little. I'm hoping my mic will go all the way here. All right. And then I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to cut just a little bit more because I'm struggling. There should be no struggle. I will tell you where all the seams come together, it is a little bulky. I should have checked before, huh? Yep, we're good. All right, I'm going to turn it just a bit, make this a little easier for me. But I wanted to show you that stay stitch. And like I said, you could in fact do it inside, I mean around, all around the outside to help those edges that are cut on a diagonal from unstitching. It's actually probably a good idea to do that. Now, whenever you do this, just make sure you're not cutting underneath something you're not supposed to. We're just going to go around, get this cut out. I'm very grateful for the stay stitch at this point. All right, there's a cute little 4 patch for you. Okay, maybe I'll make a coaster out of it. That'd be cute. Okay, so that's all of the cutting for your tree skirt. It will have a 4-inch hole and a slit for you to put between, you know, your tree in so you can wrap it in. So there she is. Now you could leave the, if you have an artificial tree, or even another one, even a real one, if you put your stand in first and you put this over the hole, you don't have to cut this straight line through here. You don't need a slit because you can just slip it right over top and then just leave the open hole. And this will sit on your tree stand and then you can put the tree in. So that is an option if that is something you choose to do. That's it, guys. That's the cut. Whoop, whoop. Stay stitch all the way around. After you find the center, cut the slits, and you're good to go. So we'll talk about binding here. I'll see you guys in just a sec. Okay, now here we are, right? So what is going on with this binding? Why do I not have this finished? I'm going to do something a little different. I do not prefer to piecemeal. Some of these corners are very, very similar to the binding when I did the Christmas Star, a quilted Santa cookie rug. I'll put a link up here. I think it's up here. Might be up here. There'll be a little eye. I'll also put the link down below in the description box. It's similar, but it's just a little bit different because they're not really the same angles. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to come at you today, 3 p.m. live, right? So I am going to do I'm going to do a corner with you, okay? I've left some corners out. I'm going to do one with you and explain to you how I got those corners to work with miter before I finish it. So we're going to do that today at 3 p.m. live. Okay, let me just make sure I check my notes. What else do I have to share with you? Okay, I did talk about that. I talked to you about quilting. I did this on my long arm, and I bought it from Urban Elements, the pattern. It's called Christmas Cookie 2. My daughter used the same one. I'm about to show you that in just a second. But if you don't have a long arm, and if you do have a long arm, let me say, if you have any questions on how to load this, because it's a little different, please contact me. I'd rather have the conversation with you than just describing it. So we can talk about that if you're interested. I'm not, I'm still learning robotics, and I did use robotics, but I can tell you how to load it. That's for sure. This is my third Christmas tree skirt, and I'm going to share with you one of them at the live that I've done, the one that's underneath my tree. The other one's at my daughter's house, so I can't share it. But there's some other things that you can do with binding that I want to share with you. So I'm going to do it today at 3 p.m. on our live. But other quilting ideas. If you're going to do this on your long arm, the Christmas tree skirt that's underneath my Christmas tree at this point, it's the same. It's 48 inches all the way around. So like this area is shorter. The longest point is 48 inches. That one is 48 inches all the way around. Okay. And I did it on my domestic, the one I'm going to share with you. But you don't have to free motion it. What I was thinking, you could actually, number one, stitch in the ditch. Super easy, super fun. Just stitch in a ditch. And because they're only 2.5 inches, you'll have, I use Quilter's Dream for my batting. So you have 8 inches of quilt. I used 820, by the way. So you have 8 inches of quilting space allowed with that batting. Okay. But because these are 2.5 inches, you could even use a lot of different things, because a lot of them do 4 inches or above. So stitch in the ditch is number one. Number two, I thought about straight lines. Just all the way through. Just straight lines. Just get her done. Or you could do wavy lines. Okay, some of you have machines that have a wavy line already programmed. So you could just program your machine and just straight stitch basically, but it'll go wavy for you. That would be cool. Another one is, and I've done this, I think I've done this in the 12 days of quilting last year. It's organic straight line. So what does that mean? That means that the lines, they're not up and down perfectly straight. You can do one this way, you can do one this way, and then the next one goes this way. They don't have to be straight. You can even do organic wavy lines too. All of those options make this really, really much easier to do on a domestic machine. Mine is 6 3/4, and I free motioned the tree skirt with this machine, 6 3/4 throat. It can be done. And it wasn't too bad because of the way that the angles work. You can do it. Okay. But then also the stitch in the ditch, straight lines, organic straight lines, or organic wavy lines, or just wavy lines. All of those are really, really good options. Any of them would be. especially since we have all these straight lines, I think the wavy would add a little more to it. I think it would be really cool. I didn't do that. I just loaded it on my long arm and got it done with the Christmas Cookie 2 from Urban Elements. So just to let you know about that. Okay. Another thing. Oh, do I want to tackle this? Yeah, we're going to tackle it. You could do this completely scrappy. Dig into your scraps, and you could do this completely scrappy. I will talk today on the live at 3 p.m. Eastern time about another fabric line that I think would be really cute. And I'll talk to you, even if you do scrappy, I will talk to you about what to do with these 8.5-inch squares, okay? Because I used a panel that had blocks that I could cut into 8.5-inch squares. So what can we do if you don't have that? I'll talk to you today at 3 p.m. I hope you'll join me. One of the things about backing, I did tell you in my little, let me add it in, I use 3.5 yards so I can get the seam down the middle ish. But I will tell you also, with my tree skirt that I did in a 48-inch circle, so it will work with this because we're just cutting off ends, so they're just shorter on certain sides, but basically it's within that circle, right? The pattern that I used called for 1 3/4. Now, I just want to tell you, if you do that, what'll happen is your line will be in this really weird spot. Okay, it won't be down the middle. It'll be, I'll show you tomorrow. I'll show you later today what exactly that backing did, because it's different. It did like this really weird spot to make sure I could cover it all. So, saying that, you can use 1 3/4 and get her done. Okay. But if you want that seam down the middle, it's 3.5 yards, and it'll give you enough for binding, if you use the same fabric that you used on your backing for your binding. It'll give you enough. All of it will be included. So that's what I have to add for that. The surprise. So I had, like I told you, I used Cup of Cheer Fat Quarter Bundle. There's a lot of fabric in here, okay? And it has a panel here at the bottom. I talked about that earlier. And I cut a metric ton of squares. So what did I do with some of those extras? I got more. I'm going to throw a picture up here. Now, my daughter is traveling back to Kansas City. So she was in a hotel when she took the picture for me. But I'm going to throw a picture. Let me move over here. I'm going to throw a picture over there. She did her own table runner. Okay. And the table runner, she designed how many squares would go in between. Now, let me tell y'all. She did all of that. Then she pieced it by herself, and then she actually used my robotics to quilt it. She used Pin Dot Christmas by Lori Holt for Riley Blake Designs for the backing and the binding. Turned out really cute. However, right now, Pin Dot Christmas is on back order. We are getting more, but we just have to wait for it to come in. It is a darling, darling line. And it worked out fantabulously for her table runner. Can't wait to see it on her table. But let me just say this. The only quilt that my daughter has made thus far is rag quilts. This was her very first truly pieced quilt top. Now I did cut all the fabric. I had all those left over, so I already did that. And I showed her how I cut the panels because I let her pick what was left over, and that's what she picked. So she picked out those. I showed her how to cut them down, but all the 2.5-inch squares were already cut. She just simply played to see how much were in between each panel, how much were on the outsides to do around it. She did a great job. But that's another thing you can do. So if you decide to make this tree skirt using this bundle, not only can you get, and there's more, but not only can you get a octagon Christmas cheer tree skirt, you can also get at least one table runner. I'm thinking, oh, I know you can. You can get 2 table runners. I'm going to do something a little different in the future here, and you will see. But there's so much you can do with this. And it's a super cute line. Gotta love it. But I wanted to share that little surprise with you because I was going to do it. And then when she came to visit, she was like, oh, I'll do a table runner. I want a table runner. She wanted the tree skirt. She can't have a tree skirt. She already has one. So I helped her. I gave her all the fabric. That's the only thing I did. She went ahead and did everything else. And she did I did bind it on surprise. That was it. So, yeah. Super cute. Love it. And we can talk about what it took to make the table runner because it's a little different. Less 2.5-inch squares, only 3 panels, and I can tell you what she used for the backing and the binding, just so you know. So at any rate, yeah, that is Christmas Wednesday for November of 2022. I hope y'all make this. If you have any questions or if you use a different fabric, I'd love, 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 love. Please share. I'd love to see this. Don't forget to grab your resources if you're interested in making this quilt because it will help dramatically. Okay, it will help so much using the resources, especially with the coloring. But yeah, that's it for today, guys. I will see you like I've talked about. We're going to do binding today, so the live might be just a little longer because I want to show you how to get these weird angles, how to get the miter corner, okay? So I want to do that with you today at 3 p.m. Eastern time. If you have any questions at that point, please do not hesitate to ask. I'll answer them for sure. You can ask in the comments now, and I'll readdress them when the live happens, or you can hold them and just ask me during a live. That's what it's there for. It's a live Q&A, live quilting and answers. So I look forward to seeing you all at 3 p.m. Now, next week is a Cherub Chit Chat. It is the first Wednesday of the month, so we're going to do a Cherub Chit Chat. I'll be getting in touch with a lot of you if I can use your photos. We'll talk about that. I actually am going to address a question that came down the line. So, we'll talk about that also during Cherub Chit Chat, but that's next week, okay? So look forward to the Cherub Chit Chat, but in December, we have 2 more Christmas Wednesdays. They're back to back, and we're going to do 2 Santa cookie rugs. So if you haven't been around for a while and you're wondering what a Santa cookie rug is, check it out. There's basically 2 years worth. So there are 4 different Santa cookie rugs. And I want to remind y'all that I had an interview a couple years back. In 2020, I had an interview with Santa Claus. And it is a fantabulous interview. He was amazing. So, by the way, that is not kid-friendly. So don't share it with kids. So, at any rate, today I will see you at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Because I'm in here in Virginia. Thank you all for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. I hope that you will enjoy the live demonstration of the binding. And until next time, guys, may you continue to be inspired, productive, ever so joyful, never stop believing, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, whoop whoop, and Merry Christmas. I'll see y'all soon.